time I told you all the basic that how we start when we get our subscription, I mean license and everything. With your license, as I told you, we get a provisioning access. The very first thing, okay? The very first thing what a consultant do is going to the provisioning access. This is called your provisioning access, okay? So you will have your user ID and password. You'll be able to access this one. The moment you'll access, I mean, use your user ID and password, this is the page you will land on. All that will be changed is the name of your company. So this is a demo one. So that's why it's written like this. Otherwise, it will always be your company's name. Okay. So the very first thing what you do, you click on this company. The very first thing. I'll show you the entire hierarchy, how it is written in the document as well. Yeah. And then, as I said, like your mobile phone, you will click on your company settings. Yeah. So what we are doing, we just got our license and this system, the other instance. But in order to start this page or start this instance, we need to create all the settings from the backend. That is your provision. So what we are doing, we came to this, and now SAP has provided you all these information and all these features just like you get in your mobile phone. What SAP says, based on your requirement, you just go and click, check all these boxes that you want to enable in your system, features that you want to use. Okay, any of them. Now, how is that? This is not only for Employee Central, other modules are also there, but if you have license for it, if you don't have license for it, you won't be able to utilize it. Like, let me show you onboarding. See, we have in onboarding 1.0, onboarding integration, onboarding these things, everything will be there. You want to see other, that will also be there. All of them will be there, but since we have to work on Employee Central, we will enable those features which are related to Employee Central only. So let's go and see few of them. So if I say Employee Central, with this name you will see a lot of things like company structure and stuff. Not only this, but there are some features which are mandatory. Like your mobile phone, when you go again to that example, you see what? There are some applications which you cannot ignore. If you want to uh, uninstall Google Chrome, you won't be able to. System always throws an error, right? There are some apps or features which comes along with it, with your phone. Just like that, there are some features which are very much mandatory. If you don't use it, you won't be able to use your Employee Central. So few of them are like foundation object, Employee Central foundation object, generic object, generic object. So there is an entire list which I'll show you right now. That should be there only where you can see your recording.
Videos and stuff, right?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
the record. Okay.
Okay. So this is the document I'll share with you. So wherein you can go to content and you'll see the entire list how you implement the entire success factor Employee Central. Okay. So like you have Employee Central overview, comparing Employee Central and employee profile, all this you see. So recommended implementation sequence. This will tell you what is the first thing that you do. So this is what we are doing, setting up a new account in provisioning. That's what we are doing, enabling all the features and everything. Creating the super admin, which is the next part we will do. And just like that, corporate data model and stuff, we keep on going till the last part, HRI sync and everything. Okay. So this is the hierarchy that we follow. Sequence. Okay. There must be provisioning. Yeah. Initial configuration task, set up the basics. So when you go to basic, there are few features which are mandatory, you can say. So these are your employee, enable the attachment manager, profile data, central foundation object which I showed you, generic object. All these information should be enabled in order to check your, in order to utilize your employee central. So all of them are there when you have your provisioning. All of course you will not have your provisioning access, but you can see it. Attachment. So enable the attachment manager. All these features will be there. Just have to check these boxes in order to enable it in the system. Now once this is done, this is the basic setup as I showed you, all the basic setup. The next step is creating a super admin. Why super admin? As I said, this is a blank sheet right now for me. Although you will get your URL, user ID, password just for one, and you will be able to access this, but there would not be any data in the system till now. When I enable these features, now I have the base created, but I don't have the proper access for it. You agree that there would be some person, the master admin you can say, or super admin, who will actually run the system, right? Correct. So if I have to give you a permission, I should also have that permission. Then only I will assign that permission to you. Correct. So
Yeah, so
right
it's like
now,
basically, is it here like, I know in SAP we had like a manager had particular access and the employees had different access. So it's like that. I mean, you
correct,
know,
correct, correct. So if let's say I have to give you a particular access to your manager, but if I want to give it to them, before that I should have that access. Unless I have the access, I won't be able to do it. Correct. I should be the master admin who can assign you different roles. Then only I will have that. So that's why till now we don't have any person created in the system. We don't have any person who has any access in the system. So for that, what we do, we create a master admin who will have the entire access for the system. Once we have this access, what we can do, that person can come to this instance and that person can start assigning different roles, assigning different groups to different people. Making sense?
yeah,
So let's go and see that. So what we do, we go to, we scroll down to admin user. Here we give it a name, like let's say SF admin. I'm sure the login access you must have given with uh, start somewhere with SF admin or something like that, right? So this is how you give it a name, then you give them a password, give their first name, last name, and their admin email ID. Now I confirm that the affected customer has provided approval for the creation of super admin. Once you do that, now you give your company's email ID, because any communication or any notification will come to that particular email ID. Okay, and you just click on create admin. Once that is done, a request will be sent to SAP, and within some time your super admin will be created with this name and access. Created this in the document in the system. Now what I'll do, I'll go to the system and I will start creating different people, right? So for that, what we do, I have the admin, Now I can go to my instance and I will start creating those groups. That we will come later. But are we clear what the basic things we did? We did all the
Yeah,
basic feature
yeah,
enablement, and
yeah.
now this is the small things. The second part we come to system. You go to company system and logo setting. From here also you do some changes or settings, like which features you want to enable here, like Outlook calendar integration. That will help you in the your recruitment. As uh, in recruitment, what will do? It will give, when you set up an interview, automatically it will assign to your Outlook. Enable centralized service or work permit, centralized service for personal information, all these features, whatever you want, like enable forward propagation for compensation information. If you have a compensation information, that can be propagated to some other details. Then you go to validate mandatory field in the dependence detail section. If you're filling out your dependence detail, it will ask you for those mandatory details. If you don't fill it, it will throw an error. Mandatory field in the emergency contact details. Just like that, you keep on doing it, whatever. So like these things. See, so I have company functional currency should be USD. Maximum number already used as employee ID for existing. So this is the number maximum you can use. Next person ID. So you are hiring somebody. If you hire somebody else, the next person ID should be this. Automatically system picks it from here. Maximum thread pool for size employee central. How many people you can actually work on right now? 5. Set a batch size for employee and foundation data import. I mean, for an employee or foundation data object, you can pick 50 people at one time. So just like that, it should be, there should be a password also. So schedule job retention period days. All these data you will, yes, see the attachment, how big attachment you can attach right in one go. So I say attachment storage, there should not be any limit. Attachment user limit, a user can maximum attach 5 MB file. Enable alert attachment storage. Just like that, you keep on doing and you just click on save setting. Once this is done, then you move forward. Now, coming back to our second part, third part actually. So if I go to this recommendation implementation sequence, the first one is your this. We did provisioning, we did creation. Now third is your data models. Okay, and this. Now this is very much dependent on your XML. Have you worked on XML before?
No, no.
Initial parts which we have to deal with before start configuring our data. Sorry. Okay. So next thing what we do, we upload our data models. What are data models? Data models are those data which you use in Employee Central that satisfies your company's requirements. What does that mean? I am saying I am running a HR system. Now a HR system runs on what? Data, two data especially, either your company's data or your employees data, correct? You can only keep two kind of data in the system, isn't it? When you run a HR system, one is company's information, another is your employees information. So this is what we do. We keep employees detail and your organization detail. Now, all those data were of course scrambled and they were very confusing. So what SAP did, they said, okay, let us do one thing. Let's divide or define these data into two different ways or structurize these data. So when we structurized, we said there should be a data model which will be helpful to understand and suffice our requirement. Like as an organization, what I need, I'll tell you that okay, in my organization, we have HR department, we have finance department, we have a division, we have this location, everything. That is my company's information. And in order to run a company, you need this information. That means I need few information which will actually help me to set up my company. That's one. Second, when I talk about employees, what happens? Employees, in order to hire an employee or update employees' data, what all data I need? I need their personal information, their companies, I mean, employment information, compensation data, all these things. So in order to run that, I'll do what? I will start creating these data in the system. So in that manner, what SAP did, SAP provided or divided these data models into four different parts. One is called corporate data model. Another is called country specific corporate data model. Third is called succession data model. And the last one is country specific succession data model. Very easy. If you remember these two, other two are quite easy. You just have to use country specific. So first one is called corporate data model. And if you remember corporate data model and succession data model, that is more than enough to understand other two. Yeah. Now let's go and talk about it. First I say that is a corporate data model. Let's talk about corporate data model. What is corporate data model? The corporate data model explains about the company's entire structure. It actually talks about what? Your org detail, your pay structure, and your job structure. That is how we run our organization. We have a org structure, that how many uh, business units should be there, how many, yeah, how many division, department, all these things should be there in your organization. Then we have our pay structure. We say, okay, this company is going to pay you this much for this particular rank. So that's why if you apply somewhere, they always say that yes, we have a bandwidth to pay you this much. If they are not able to, they will say no, we can't pay you that much. Simple. Now the last one is your job structure. That okay, you must have heard that global job title, local job title, all these comes under that. What does that mean? I say okay, I may be senior consultant somewhere, but for outside world I will be considered as manager. I may be called as associate director somewhere, and internally it can be called as senior manager, something like that. I mean, they say okay, this grade people will be called this, and this grade people will be called this. What will be your job code? When you come under this function, what will be your job data would be? Things like that we define in our organization all the time, and that's how we run our organization. So any information or any data actually that talks about your organizational structure is called as corporate data model. Now how do you work on it? To work on corporate data model or manage it or update it, you have to work on XML. How? I'll show you in a while, so don't worry. You can manage all these from XML. First thing, let's go and talk about the second one. I'll show you both at the same time. The second is your country specific corporate data model. What does that mean? I told you that all data that talks about your company structure are called as corporate data model. Now, what is country specific corporate data model? You go to any organization, if they have global branches, every country will have their own policies, own legal requirement, and based on that legal requirement of policy, what they do, they keep on changing their policies. Like if you want to work in China, of course you have to follow their rules and regulations. If you work in India, you have a foreign company, you will have to comply with the Indian policies. So that means based on the policy and country's requirement, we keep on changing things in our organization. So if you do change and you only do these changes for that particular country, then that change or that data is called country specific data. Like a very normal example, like KFC, you must have seen. KFC doesn't serve veg burger outside India, but when it comes to India, they do serve veg burger. But that veg burger is not a part of global KFC. What they do, they only serve it for India. That means that veg burger is country specific requirement. So that's why that is called country specific data. Just like that, if we go to the organization, we see in India we work on shared services, let's say for an example, and US or Canada they don't. So of course in India we will need a separate department called shared services. Now since that is only available in India, we need that department in India only. So we can say the shared services department is country specific department. Make sense? Yes, no?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's the simple thing.
So
Now as I
this now
Mhm,
I know the shared services uh,
mhm.
is controlled by US, right? I mean, is it, so that
Yeah, so
they have it in India, but it's specific
uh
to India, or is it specific to US? Like, why?
no, so what I'm saying, I'm just saying
Uh-huh.
if we have any requirement,
Okay, okay,
country
okay, got
specific.
it, got it,
I'll
got
just give
it,
you an
got it.
example. Yeah.
Okay, got it, got
Yes. So that is why we are saying. So like for an example, if you take example for Google, so Google has their head office in California. Yeah. But or I don't know, maybe in California, I guess. Let's say, but when it comes to Canada or India, they are also having their own headquarters here. You say, okay, this is India headquarters, this is Canada headquarter of Google. Now, and their policies will change a bit. Like if you come to India, the Indians, I mean, the labor policy will be different. You can say, okay, they don't work on contract basis. So this is country specific requirement. But when you go to US, Canada, you see people do work on contract. That contract is a requirement from that country. So anything that is required for a particular country and we are making changes based on that, that data will be called as country specific data. I'm working or creating this only for that particular country that time. That's why you must have heard right now we had a tussle with our government had a tussle with the Twitter and all these social media.
it. Yes,
Because
yeah, that's true.
yeah, so correct. So that's why they were not ready to follow this, and they were very much they were forcing, or you can say they had to, of course, ultimately. So that was because this is country specific requirement. So whatever changes they did legally and in policies, Twitter and everyone, that was because this was required from that particular country. Okay. Now let's go and see that in the system. If we are good with the definition, let's see in the system. So now earlier we were working on these data models from our provisioning itself. How? You go to data model and SAP will provide you data model, normal data model, which you go to export data model part, and whatever SAP has provided, you can upload it. You can click on this. See, The basic informations like user ID, username, all these data are required, gender. So this comes from your SAP, so you don't have to worry about it. But if you want to make any changes, you can. How does it work? Don't get confused with all these things. This is very simple. Let me explain you. But let me take some time and let's see these basic details. What we do, you can see these are very basic information like user ID, username, last name, first name. All what I do, I go upload this document on my provisioning. And don't worry about the XML, I'll explain you later. What I do, I choose my file and submit it. The moment I submit it, all the informations which are available on this XML file will be uploaded from the backend on this system. So now these all information called username, user ID, location, first one, last name, competency, all these will be available on my front end. If I want to hire somebody now, I can go and hire them. But of course, every company will have their own requirement, right? You can't force PepsiCo to do the same thing that Coke did, although they are both beverage companies, but you can't. Because PepsiCo might have their own requirement and Coke might have their own requirement. So let's go and see that. First of all, I did it. This is the basic one that you have to do. So you get all the information which are normal and basic requirements or standard, you can say. All these data comes in your data, in your system. But as I said, what we did, SAP did, they divided information into different data models. Now, in order to run your company, you will have to provide those informations as well. This is very basic. This is your only your personal information, you can say, or standard data that you run. See, Facebook and everything. But in order to run your organization, you have to define your corporate data model first. So in order to run your corporate data model, there are two things. Initially, we were able to do this based on this XML only from your provisioning. Now what SAP did, just to help you further, they provided it on your front end itself. So if you write corporate data model, you will be able to use it. How? I'll show you. So here you can just go click on corporate data model. System will show this. Okay, see, we did few. So all these data you can do from, you can export your information from here also. Or if you want to go to provisioning, you can go to corporate data model XML and you can export from here also. Both the things. See, whatever we did there, we have done it here. So from both places, you can export your information. So let's go and see it from here. I say, okay, export. Okay. Why I'm showing you this? I'll explain you. Now, this is my corporate data model. Means, as I said, now I am doing what? I am setting up the structure of my organization. The basic data is there, but the structure, in order to submit and define the structure of my data, my company, I will have to go to this. That is called corporate data model. Now, in order to do that, what I need to do, I will define my location. I mean, all the corporate data related information. How does XML work now? Let's go and talk about it. so that we are on same page and you don't get confused. Okay. Before I explain you this, let me show you one thing. So first, let's go to the home page. This is our instance. Here, in order to maintain, not to create, again saying, because corporate data model, you have to do it from there. In order to maintain this corporate data model, you will have to go to one place called, you go to admin center. Please note it down. You go to admin center and you click on manage org, manage organization, pay and job structure. This is what I'm saying, that for corporate data model, this is what you're going to set up in the system. So you say, I'll go to manage org, pay and job structure. Everything that you find here is a corporate data model. You will find three options. First, create new. If you want to create a new value for it, mind it, I'm calling value, not saying a new one, because this is the list that you get from SAP and you can't edit this list. You can't add something else here. This will remain intact just like this. But what you can do, you can create values for it, which I'll show you. Yeah. So if you want to create a new value, you come here. If you want to search those values, whatever you created, you can come here. So like I click on location, and then system will give you this option. You click on this, you'll be able to see all the values that you have created for location. Okay. Now let's go and see that. Now, when I say, of course, we'll create it again, but just to show you the basics, let's say I want to create location. I'm taking one example. You can take any one of them. I'm just taking example location because it will be good to understand. So I say, let's take location. The moment I clicked on it, system says, okay, you're going to create a location effective as on this date. You can change your date from any to any. That's up to you. When do you want to create that date from? I mean, object from. Sorry. So this is what I'm going to create. This is my object, and this is. So if I ask you what is your location, so of course you will not tell me, okay, only Canada. Correct. If somebody asks you where do I need to come, what is the location, you will of course say, yes, you come to this province. This is my street name. This is my flat name or house or number, and this is the street name, something like that, right? This is the district or whatever it is called there, like county or something. Correct? Yes, no.
Yes, yes.
So that's why, including all those fields, you say collectively, this is my location.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So that's what XML is. XML says, how do you create it? First, I say I want to create a new element. Element is what? Your entire object. What you actually want to create. I said I want to create location. So location is an object for me, a separate object for me. So I will keep that location or object. But in order to, okay, now that's, let's say I said, okay, location. Let me take you to the location. This is my location object. See, in order to create a new object, I have to say, okay, this is new HRIS element. Now, in English, of course, we say this location, but in different countries and different language, it should be called differently. Like in Saudi Arabia, it will be called like this. If you go and search on Google, it will say location. In other BG and stuff, like if you go to India, in Hindi, it is called Sthan. So what we did, we created a new element, or you can say a new object, and we have defined that in different languages. Now the second is their fields. I said, okay, this element will be divided in different fields. So first field is code. And what that code will be called in different languages that we have defined here. Second is your name, correct? Again, name is defined in different language. Just like that, you keep on doing and keep on adding any
So,
field that you want.
so basically, it is defining fields by like say one, two, three, four, like
Correct. Correct.
and then you're defining all those fields in different languages.
Correct. Correct. Everything you define in different language. Now let me take you through with this from the start. So any XML is created actually in SuccessFactors especially into three different parts. One is called element, or you can also say objects. Second is called fields, and third is called label. What does that mean? Element means a new object or new data that you want to create. See, at the top we had location group, correct? So we also have a object called location group. Then we go to, so if you want to create a new object, what you have to do, how do we do that? Any element in XML starts with this bracket. See this bracket, anything that you start with this, that means you are writing something new. So if I start like this, okay, element means I am creating a new element. And the moment, oh sorry, and the moment I say this bracket, means there I am actually closing this object, closing information for this particular object. That's why you can see that new object starts with this, a normal bracket we have, that means starting a new object, and that ends with, so this is for the top one, hris element ends here, and that's why I can start a new element, that is hris int. Now just to show you this again, like I am creating a new field. Okay, this is code. So I'm starting with this bracket, sorry, and when I'm done with all the information that were needed for that particular field, what I did, I said okay, now close this data for hris field with this backslash. Now any element I created, I will tell their fields, what fields are needed, so I am creating those fields under that element, and what that field will be called, or how you can see that data in the front end, that is something we call label. Now how field is done, label. Now you can go to the system. I said my name of the first code is field is called code, but if you see here the id is called external code, but when we go to our system it is shown as code. Whatever you define in your label, that is what you're going to see in your data or your front end. Like let's go and take another example. Like see, the id is name but with small n, correct? But when you go to your front end, you see name with a bold letter, I'm sorry, capital letter starting with n, because in the label we have defined the name with a capital letter. Just like that, you go to any other, like description, see again small d, here it is capital D, small d, here you'll see the capital D. Just like that, if you keep on scrolling, you will see all the fields that are related to this. Status, again status, start date, end date. See, end date, the code is this, but label is end date. So if we go to, if they have added it, so these fields are not required, that's why maybe this is not there. All these data will be there. See, visibility is done as none, that's why. So I will talk about it. But is it making sense a bit? Of course, it will take a little time to understand
No,
what's
no,
going on.
that I do. I mean, I can understand a little bit. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So this is how we actually work on our corporate data model. So what I did, I will go to this XML, make any changes that I want, and I will upload it on my system. Okay. Like for an example, let's go and take this example only, location. I go to location and I said I want to make any changes. This is my location. And let's say for code, I want this to be called as code 1, and it should not be a required field. So this attribute will be changed to false. Okay. But since I am doing it for my system, which is actually working on GB, I mean UK English, I will have to make that change in that particular country's language as well. So GB is Great Britain, and I want to see this as code 1, but it should not be a required field. Okay, let's go and see that. So I save this data. Sorry, company. Okay, so I saved it. Now let's go to my data where we actually did the changes. Let's go to corporate data model. Now I go to import, click on browse. I think that was there in download. Yeah, this is my data, correct? And I write any comment and click on import. Okay, this is successfully uploaded. Let's go and refresh our data. Can you see now? The name is changed. So code 1, and that is not a mandatory field any longer. Correct?
Yeah.
So this is how every time people ask you about corporate data model, this is how we actually maintain it from XML only. You can't do anything from front end. That's why we need XML for the system to run. Okay. So this is what we wanted to talk about corporate data model.